I think the core principle you should take out of this is...
This is my friend Scott, and sometimes when he starts talking, I think of him like this. Nah, just kidding. I really think of him like this.
In the productivity space, there's a character named Tiago Forte. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. But he really pioneers the idea of the second brain.
Yeah.
The idea of you only have so much mental capacity in your head to remember things, to keep track of things, and so forth. And we have all this technology available to us to keep track of tasks and items and notes for us. Why keep it all in our head? And I think for me, no, we all have busy lives. We have work, we have personal relationships, we have family, we have personal goals. And trying to keep all that information in our head and not in some sort of structured way, for me, is very difficult. I tend to either you forget what to do, you forget tasks, you forget information. But once you build out your own second brain, and it could be, for me, I do digital notes, but some people do handwritten notes. It's all different based off your own preferences. For me, what I found is that being able to just know, hey, this is important information, I want to remember it, and to know that I could put it into my second brain and always retrieve it in the future.
It's like a second line of thought and process for you, right?
Yeah.
So you have your primary brain, which is like your regular cognitive day-to-day function, and then you have a more organized, more filtered out and distilled version of what your thoughts are like on paper, or I guess digitally.
In my case, digitally. Yeah, and it's just, it gives you a way to kind of clear mental space.
If we walk through a day in your life, right? Let's say it's a Tuesday and you have work 9 to 5. Like, what's that first app you open? It's To-Do List?
I would say it's Todoist, yep.
And then what do you put into the To-Do List?
Yeah, I can open
like
that.
That's a process, right? Like going through the process of your day using these apps to improve your day. I think that's something that we should probably talk about.
Yeah, let's go talk about that.
Yeah.
Here's Todoist. Todoist is pretty popular. I think it's at one point was one of the most
It's
popular.
the number one app on number one To-Do List app on the Apple Store.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. The founder is very active on Twitter. I would follow him. He's pretty cool. He has a lot of sneak peeks and items and so forth. The reason I like Todoist is that it's very easy to set up a simple structure. And it's portable. Because it's been around for so long, it's available on everything. iPhone, MacBook, whatever, and so forth.
And it's a fully fleshed out application.
It's a fully fleshed out application. It's stable, and it's relatively cheap, $4 a month. And they have a student discount too, which makes it super cheap. And so for my Todoist, I only have a couple of projects set up. Some people go ham with the projects. Me personally, I have work and personal.
And then any other things you're into, right?
And then I have things like, okay, I have some apartment stuff.
But those are like segmented.
Those are segmented stuff.
I
have routines, which is an interesting one. I'll go into that a little bit. But how should I state? When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is actually go to my morning tasks filter. And what this filter does, it essentially shows all my tasks that I have due today before 12 p.m. So for example, let's say I just take this work task. I'm gonna make it due today morning. Let's just say today at 9 a.m. Now when I wake up, here's my first task to do today. Do this item. And they roll over. So if I don't get to this in the morning, by the time the afternoon comes, it's still there. And also other items in the afternoon will pop up. And then usually evening, by the time you usually get to evening, usually it's not work related at that point, because that's like after 5 p.m. It's mainly just personal items. And so some people like to split it up between personal and morning, but for me, it's all the same. It's stuff you're doing. If you need to do something in the morning for work and personal, then
might as well keep it in the same tab.
It's easy just to see it one by one. And so I've found that this way, segmenting my day, morning, afternoon, and evening, makes it really easy for me to prioritize. And plus, it also makes it easy for you, as you're planning the rest of your week, know when you're doing too much or too little. Like, you can only put so much in morning, right? And instead of doing, because at one point, I did it very much at a day based, so day by day. And what I realized, when you do it day by day, you start to lose track of how much you can actually do in one day. You start to stack on like 5, 10 tasks in one day. And then I went to the opposite, where I did like really in-depth calendar blocking. Where I was like doing 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm doing this, 11 a.m. to this, so forth, I'm doing this. And I realized life's life. Things get out of the way, especially at work. People ask questions out of the
Yeah,
blue.
like a quick 30-minute meeting.
And all of a sudden,
it's
your whole
30
calendar's out of whack. And I realized that was too specific.
Too rigid.
Too rigid.
Yeah.
And so I found for me, morning, afternoon, evening, gave you enough space to really plan my day, but had the flexibility to kind of adjust as I saw fit.
Yeah, and then do you try and hit a balance between your personal and work projects? Or is it more like weekdays I'll do a little bit more work stuff, weekends I'll do a little bit more personal stuff?
Yeah, so certainly during the weekdays, morning and afternoons are predominantly work. Because you work 9 to 5-ish is usually work. Even working from home, usually the things in my personal are mainly like chores, like doing the dishes, the laundry, and so forth. And then on the weekdays, evening tasks are almost all personal items and so forth. And then on weekends, of course, it's a free-for-all, mainly personal. Hopefully.
If Luke's watching this, not for Luke. Luke's working. Luke is working. He's working. But
and this is all synced up to my calendar as well. If I ever need like, the visual.
Do you use the to-do list calendar?
Actually,
or do you use a different calendar?
Todoist actually does not have a calendar yet.
Yeah.
Which I think is one of their most requested features. So
yeah, because everyone likes to see their.
I think they're working on it, but as of now, they don't have it. But
where do you use your calendar then?
I actually use one called Cron, which is just synced up to Google Calendar.
Okay.
The nice thing about Todoist, I think one reason why they refrain from needing a calendar is because it has such good cross synchronization between Todoist and Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna beat Google Calendar? Probably
not. Too many people use Google. Yeah.
And what's nice about their synchronization is that if I could create a task in here for Tuesday.
Yeah.
On personal. And it'll actually sync and add to my
to-do list. Got it.
And if I create a task in Todoist, it'll sync to here. And so you can kind of see here where things kind of bunch up because I just said do it in the morning. So they kind of just all bunch up in the morning.
Oh, so you're literally thinking to yourself that to-do list and Cron are kind of the same app.
They're the same app because they synchronize together.
But Cron's your visualization app. And are you spending most of your time in Cron or in the calendar format or in the note like list format?
I would say on my day-to-day, I spend most of my time in to-do list. Today, I had a couple of what I call energy investments that I tagged. And for me, I call it, this is something I got from Ali Abdaal. Hopefully I pronounced his name right. But Ali Abdaal kind of talked about this idea of every project you undergo is an energy investment.
Yeah.
But a big flaw that a lot of us have is we try to undergo so many different active projects at the same time.
I understand.
That we get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so he just had a good example of this Kanban board, which is just lets you showcase what are your active energy investments at a given time.
Yeah.
And energy investments are really just a fancy word for projects. Right? We could call it energy investment a project, a skill that you're learning, guitar lessons, a trip, an outing. And we see here, I have a bucket list. These are just energy investments that I haven't pursued yet. You can see here things such as going to the Van Gogh experience, developing some short reels on how I edited this photo series. While we see it actively, I'm actively trying to upgrade my workstation, restart my before and after reel series, run 8 miles. Those are active investments that I'm working towards right now this week. And for me, it was really nice to visually see this because I can see, hey, maybe I have too much going on in my active investment. Maybe I have like 5 or 6 or 7. Okay, it's time to step back and say, hey, maybe some of these I should actually not be thinking about right now.
Okay.
Dump them to the bucket list and not think about them until I have actual time to pursue.
So when you choose like what you decide to invest your energy into, is it pretty easy for you to just let go of what's not an active investment?
Yeah.
Like mentally? So it makes it way easier for you to mentally just let it go.
It makes it way easier because I know that if I let it go, it just goes back into my bucket list.
And it'll come up later on.
And if I have time and if I care about it, it can come up again.
Okay.
But I know that I'm not gonna forget about this project. It isn't a project that I thought in my head and then next week I'm just gonna forget if it was pursued.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you that, again, mental space to know you can let go of things, knowing that if time were to come up, you can bring it back into the scope.
Okay. You have things like passive income, I see.
Yeah, and this is all terms from Ali Abdaal's video. I'm sure Kenneth will link it up in the annotations. But his idea is you have active investments, and then sometimes you have passive income investments.
Yeah.
These are things where they maybe were once active, but now you've gone on a rhythm going where you'll need to focus too much time on them.
I get what you mean. Like you've gone into the flow of building it into your daily routine.
Yep. An example here is I have building a weekly cooking and grocery routine. You know, I just moved out.
Yeah.
I was focusing on getting groceries, cooking my own recipes. And now I actually have like a list of recipes that I cook and prepare and so forth, to the point where on a day-to-day I don't really think about it. I know what ingredients I need. I know when I need to go grocery shopping. I still put it as passive income because I'm still getting new recipes. I'm still learning how
getting used to it
to get cooked better. Probably eventually, even another month or so, I'll say, okay, this is like a completed project. This is part of my daily life at this point.
Yeah, and then when you've completed something, you just move it.
I just move it into
right,
complete. So an example is a really short project I had was like an apartment smart home.
Yeah.
That was simple, just getting a couple of lights set up and hooked up to Google Home. That just went from active investor to complete. There's not really any passive income related to that. So we see here with Obsidian, I might create a new note, and I'm actually creating a note. It's not like a single node line item like it is in Tana.
Yeah, like it's actually like a whole
It's a markdown and headers and so forth.
Yeah.
But then within Obsidian, you can link to other nodes. So I might do, chef's knife. And that'll link to the chef knife note. If I hover over it, it will like little snippet. You could open it up and see it. You can see things like the graph view, which it's not really useful, but it's just kind of neat to see. Just this is like how your brain has been linking things over time and so forth.
You're really invested into this idea of having a second brain, right?
Yeah, I think it's been very useful, especially for work, there's so many different active projects, there's different teams are changing, new links, new team members. It's just important to be able to remember processes and to be able to link what processes are related to each other. Yeah,
so if someone pulls up a reference from like 3 weeks ago that you were working on a project or still a task.
Meeting notes, all that.
You can just hold up, give me 5 minutes, I'll pull it up real quick.
Great thing about Obsidian is like they have a cross vault search. So you can, when you do a search, it'll search across all your notes within your vault. And of course with linking, lots of times what I found, especially for my work notes, is that I don't even need to remember the specific name. I can just remember the specific topic area. And if I click into that topic area, usually it will link to it just because it's related and so forth.
In some way, right?
Yeah.
And when you're working, how would you say it particularly benefits you, like career-wise? Like when you take notes, do you do it in a way that's different from your peers? Like for me, when I was working in finance, I would use just Outlook, really. Outlook Calendar, Outlook Mail. I would save everything into Outlook or the Microsoft Suite. But for you, I assume that your workplace, most of your coworkers probably do something similar to what I do, right? Or is it more similar towards what you're kind of in?
I would say not. I haven't seen too many people use Obsidian or like link-based note-taking apps. I think it's still definitely a much more of a niche field. I think most people still do Google Docs, or OneNote is a popular one that enterprise workspaces. Like I said, I think when you're taking a second brain, the key thing you want to do with a second brain is make it easy to retrieve information. That's all that really matters. Is it easy to put information in, and is it easy to take information out? And I think with Obsidian and these bottom-up types of note-taking, it's easy to put information in. You're just putting the notes in. You're not worrying about what folder it is and so forth. And with like the cross-search and linking, it's really easy to pull information out. And so I think when it comes to work, it certainly benefits being able to reference material a lot faster. Not being able to go to like websites like these internal enterprise websites that have really bad search or something that's outdated and so forth. And being able to distill like summaries of that, because sometimes the documentation isn't very clear. And you just need to have like reference notes.
And it's really nice when you don't have to reference other people's documentation or to progress yourself, right? I think that's a big thing that you were telling me, is that like when you need help, you've probably already done it before. In some capacity. So if you document it correctly, just while you're coding, and then you put it into your Obsidian notes, it's like, hey, I have a problem here. This is how I did it. And then you can always reference that when other people need help, or for example, when you're training an intern, you could be like, I've actually done this before, let me send it to you. Maybe this will help you figure it out.
I may be able to look up the intern's name, click on the intern's page, and then it'll have all the links to training docs I helped with them. And I could just do essentially the same thing with a new intern.
So it's very like efficient in the way that like, you spend a little bit of time putting it in your notes in the first place, but once you are at the other end of the tunnel, you can reap the benefits of those notes.
Yeah, for sure. There's certainly a bit of upfront, and I think that upfront decreases over time. Once you get into the flow of things, you stop tinkering and just do work. I think that's the biggest flaw when it comes to a lot of these apps. Is a lot of people tinker too much.
With the app
They spend
itself.
too much, because the app it's cool, it's a cool app, right? It has a lot of concepts that you didn't learn in school. Most people in school weren't using it. But I found, especially with myself, this is a fault that I ran into, was I spent a lot of time tinkering and not a lot of time note-taking. But over time...
You spent a lot of time playing with your notes.
Playing with your notes. Organizing your notes for the sake of organizing.
Exactly.
But then over time, though, you get out of that phase. And now I'm at that point where I just take notes and retrieve them as I see.
How does this method of note-taking really differ from like when you were in school trying to learn? Like when you were in school, was it more like page down, like what do I need for next week? And is it purely academic?
For school, I use Notion. And I think Notion has become a really popular tool
for students. Yeah.
And I was really on the hype train when Notion first came out.
Yep.
And so Notion, it definitely aspires to be much more top-down type of note-taking. You have a page for CSS 101.
Yeah.
And within CSS 101, you have pages for each individual note of every class.
Yeah.
And Notion is a little bit better than Google Docs because it does have that cross-search functionality.
Yeah, it does.
And now they did add linking, so like a rudimentary form of linking. I would say it's not as smooth as like these other apps. But in school, I was definitely that top-down note taker, and I think it worked well enough because school itself is very containerized.
Yeah, very contained.
And the class
school,
itself is already very containerized. So even if your notes for that class were segmented up,
you're only gonna use it for 10 weeks.
It wasn't too bad. But when you get into like the real world, your personal life and work, those school-based
note-taking apps, like per segment, like per class.
There's no per class now. It's just work.
Work.
Yeah. And it becomes hard to figure out what is the folder
of life,
right? It just becomes one big folder, which is what Tana and these other apps essentially is just one big folder. Yeah.
And then you just move things through that pipeline of that folder.
With things like you link things over time, and things that are important will naturally get linked to more and become more popular. And we can kind of see here things that become more like 2022 goals. Has a lot of links to it because my goals for 2022 were important. I was doing a lot of notes referencing goals I had for that year.
When do your notes become too much? Like it starts to become an obstacle for you to achieve certain goals? Like I'm sure there was a point in your life where you're like, why am I taking so many notes? I'm not really like doing all of the things I put in my notes. Like you're kind of overconsumed with this idea of always trying to take notes, right?
No, that's certainly fair. And I think it was, one thing I realized about myself is early on, I tried to do the one app for everything.
Like what was that app?
Like for example, especially with Notion.
Okay.
I tried to use Notion, and I think it's a common thing for students because there's a lot of YouTubers that
do Notion.
Their whole career is Notion.
Yeah.
And I was definitely, I want to do everything in Notion. I want to do personal, work, task management, planning, all in Notion. And for some people that works, and you can do that in Obsidian as well. But for me, I realized personally, I prefer to add more apps that are good at its job than to use one app that is mediocre at a lot of things.
Do you not find that sometimes when you use too many apps, though, it makes note-taking harder?
So that's why I usually, task management and note-taking are a bit separate for me.
Yeah.
And I want to say I haven't gone to that because my personal notes is Tana, work notes are Obsidian. There's already an implicit separation.
Yes.
My work notes are already going to be different anyway. And so by using Obsidian versus Tana for personal, I haven't really found too much of a conflict. And then for my task management, I use the same thing for both. For both work and for personal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So your to-do list is linked to both Obsidian, or both for work.
It's used both for work and for life.
So every day when you wake up,
I use to-do list. So really useful for me is the idea of an inbox. So an inbox and most note-taking, most like to-do list applications have this. Inbox is just a generic catch-all.
Yeah.
And so think about as you're going through the day, you might come across articles or YouTube videos that you want to watch. Before I used all these systems, I got distracted. Like I would watch the video probably. I would read the article.
Yeah.
But with an inbox, I just say, okay, this looks interesting, dump in the inbox. And so I can just get on with the work that I want to do and not get distracted. And then at the end of the day, this is when you might do review. What I think is
Okay.
really important is to do some sort of daily review, because none of this works if you don't do some light maintenance. And review is like 5 minutes. Like realistically, review takes like 5 minutes. And what that might involve is just going to your inbox and saying, hey, out of these things, which ones that I actually want to read?
Yeah.
What ideas are important? If it's an important idea, okay, let's go to 10 and add it. Maybe I put a recipe. Maybe I saw a recipe. I just chuck it in here. I was yeah, I do like this recipe.
So your inbox is how you intake things that you might want to put into your notes.
Yep. And I use Todoist because it's
easiest. It's on your phone. It's on your computer. It's on everything.
They have like web clippers for everything now.
Yeah.
It just makes it easy to just intake it and then not think about it. And I think a big theme of like the second brain is just not needing to think about it until you need to think about it. Just letting it go. And so that intake process through the inbox has been super valuable to me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, when you go back through your inbox, like, how do you make those decisions on what's important for you to write down? Like, you take a look at it, or is it like a structure? Like, what's your thought process? Like, I'm very interested, like, what's important to you personally, like, for you to write down, for you to remember.
So I think that goes back towards that, at least for the personal life. For work, I tend to not use the inbox too much because
so much stuff comes up at work.
So much stuff comes out at work, and so I usually actually just put that into the work profile. And usually most of the things are very temporary, like they're asks, not they're more like they're not articles that I'm planning to read later or anything like that. So when it comes to the inbox, a lot of it's mainly personal items, and that's when I go back to that energy investment portfolio. So we go there and we say, hey, these are the things that I have like beforehand. By default, decide these are what is important for me to work on right now.
Got it.
And maybe something comes up that is an energy investment, but I haven't bucket list. I may just go into there, add it as a little note here, and be gone. And maybe one day when this becomes an active investment, I'll have those references there. I don't need to think, 3 months ago, I thought that I saw this one article that was related to a trip to Vans Creek Railroad. Let me find that one article. I just know it's there, and when it becomes important, it'll be there.
It'll pop up for you, right? What do you usually say no to? I feel like that's the most important when it comes to these things, right? Because at one point you start getting so much information, even if you were to store it, like you wouldn't be able to actually make an action or goal in real life because of it. Like, when do you say no to a note, or when do you say no to a task?
I think by having all of the trips and the projects and the skills that you want to learn in life visualized in a single place, it becomes very easy to compare. And I think it's like mental space, right? When you have everything in your head, it's hard to really objectively compare. You have so much stuff.
Everything's just relative to how you feel
at that moment. But now you have a sense, you have a comparison, and you have that default because you already pre-planned your current energy investments like a couple of days ago. So even if you're feeling down, you knew that a couple of days ago when you were thinking you were well energized and thinking good, these were the things that you thought were important
when you had energy.
And so you can kind of go off a lot of that.
And then you could just save that for tomorrow.
You can save that for tomorrow.
Or the week or the month after, right? And for you, it's very much never about making like a massive step every day. It's more about just checking one thing off every day. And certainly, that depends on different people, right? Some people like that. Life goals, 50-year goals, 20-year goals. Like big goals.
Big goals. And but personally, I've gone, like I said, I've tried to the task management at a day basis and
try a lot of different stuff.
And this is just the medium that I personally I found useful. It helps you reflect if what you're doing is actually valuable.
It's like what Ali Abdul was saying. Right? Every time I watch an Ali Abdul video, there's always the first 3 comments. It always says this. It says, Ali Abdul, the art of overcomplicating simple stuff.
I see those.
The art of hey, would you like a sandwich? And then he's like, hold up, wait a minute. Let me write this down into my note-taking apps. I wonder if this is a productive use of my energy. Like, do you ever feel that you're that guy that's overcomplicating things, or not anymore these days?
Not these days. I think before I did though. Like I said, I think sometimes you can become so invested in the system that you lose focus on doing things that are important. You start to be so focused on when am I going to clean the dishes, when am I going to wash the car, and planning your life so meticulously, you lose focus on you spend more time on the meticulous stuff than the important things.
Yeah, like did you ever read The 4-Hour Workweek?
I didn't read the 4-Hour Workweek, but there was a book called Make Time by John Mack.
I read that book.
And that is one of those books that kind of inspired me to simplify some of my things down. Because Make Time, for those who didn't know, really focuses on
your value
getting the important thing done every day, not really worrying about the smaller things.
Yeah, they call it the golden, the golden one or the golden note,
something like that.
But it's like, what does it say? It's like it's Pareto's law, right? Where it's like, how much of your activity is important? Like, right? Like only usually 20% of that activity actually brings the most value out of that time. And it seems like you have gone to that place where it's like you're not really at 100% into note taking, but you're more like taking 20% of your day to take notes, and you're really reaping the maximum benefit, right? At this point.
Yeah, I feel like I've got a really good rhythm, and things like routines, right?
Yeah.
And Todoist is very easy to kind of organize, like weekly, monthly routines and so forth, and it just makes it, again, just take it out of your brain. Don't need to worry about it.
What part of it do you find fun?
I think for me, I just enjoy building systems.
In general.
That's
part of the reason why you like your job.
I think that's why I like software engineering. Like software engineering is building systems. Task management is a system, and a system that you build for yourself as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just enjoy building that structure in a way that works well and reaping benefits from it.
For you, I have a question about that. Is it the benefits that you enjoy, or the process of getting to those benefits that you enjoy the most?
I think it's knowing that I have a process to get to those benefits that I enjoy the most. I'm very much someone who likes to plan out my steps towards a goal.
And it keeps you broad-minded, I think, right? If anything, that's what I'm learning from your note-taking. And that not only is it a way to like just get things done and like compartmentalize your thinking, but it's a good way for you to like compare things in your life, right?
Just to know what is actually important.
Is this a good use of my time?
Yeah, is this a good energy investment?
Yeah, because you're at the point in your life where like your values are kind of set, right? In terms of like as a human being. So it's like when you look at like a list of like activities in your day, you can choose for yourself, like subjectively to you, whether it's like personally or career focused goals. You can choose that list of goals and just pluck the ones that you like the most at the top, right? The most important goals. So like what I'm saying is that like when it comes to building a career, like at work, for example, right? It's like you choose a task at work, like you're given a list of things to do. Do you also take notes of that and you're like, I want to do this one because I know this is the one that's most important and the ones that's going to reap the most benefits, and your notes help you with that?
Yeah, my notes definitely help me. First of all, the notes help me complete tasks, I find, because tasks at work tend to be related to each other. So previous notes that you had on older tasks will tend to help in future tasks. But I also found when it comes to career growth, and also just your own personal knowledge of what you're doing,
how do you know you're taking a step forward?
It creates a timeline of your accomplishments, which I think is something that we easily overlook. Like if you think about what did you do in the last year, and sometimes it becomes hard to think of specifics.
Because life is a blur, right? That's what everyone says. It's like you blinked and you turned a year older.
And especially for work where concrete like numbers are really useful. Like whenever I complete a task at work that has a number related to it that's significant, I'll create a note and reference it and link it to my, I think like 2023 accomplishments. Like I have a 2023 accomplishments list. And so like when it's like performance review or whatnot, I can see all these hard facts that I've done over the year. When did I do it? What was related to it? And I could reference that for performance reviews or just think about like where I want to improve in the future. Maybe I didn't do a lot of accomplishments in this area. That's what I want to focus on. Just being able to, again, clear that mental headspace, but also be able to reference things in the future.
Do you ever peer review your own notes like over a year outside of those performance reviews? I don't know if that's a strategy that people use, or is it mainly just self-reflection for you? I think
self-reflection. Honestly, I think changing note-taking apps helps a little bit, like implicitly by accident help that.
Okay.
Because then when I change note-taking apps, right, you decide which notes you want to take with you. And it kind of provides a yearly review in the way of clearing house.
Yeah.
If you need to be. But I think one thing I've learned that's really important about note-taking and productivity is a daily 5-minute review. I think saving reviews for like the end of the week or at the end of the month becomes a bit too daunting for most people. At least for me personally, it became too much stuff to review.
Yeah.
And that one review session becomes like a task in itself. Instead of it being like a 5 or 10 minute daily review, it becomes like an hour thing where you're going through all these inbox items that you had over the week and so forth.
It becomes its own separate job.
Yeah. And so it's one of the things where just every day, we realistically have 5 minutes a day to look over what we did and reflect.
That's like a trip to the bathroom, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes to kind of keep a system going. As long as you're consistent with that, I found it to be.
If someone, like, let's say you're training someone at work, or like you're meeting someone that wants to get into note taking for the first time, like what is the path that you would recommend to them? Like which apps you would definitely use Todoist, I think, right? That would be probably the first one.
Todoist is my favorite, but there's a lot of good competitors. There's TickTick, even Apple
Notes.
Apple Task. What's the
Apple Calendar.
Apple has like a task management app. I don't know what it's called.
Reminders.
It's
called Reminders.
Hey, Reminders have had a lot of good updates.
Yeah.
It's really, I think the core principle you should take out of this is start taking notes now and start doing reviews. The review process is what note-taking app you take doesn't matter, right? Because the notes are going to be your format. It's not going to look like mine.
Yeah.
It's going to use a different app, different style, different colors and everything.
Yeah.
What really matters is that you actually review those notes and you learn more about how you take notes and develop your own system.